I prefer the RV parks. I prefer the Walmart parking lots to the beaches and things like that. There's something normal to me about it. I come from regular stock, and I prefer that. I prefer being around that.
You can add that clip of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas trying to convince you he's just an ordinary Joe to the seemingly endless list of benefits he's received, funded by his wealthy pals. Some of them actually paid for that documentary. As the New York Times reports, in this case, these rich buddies are fellow members of an exclusive club, the Horatio Alger Society, where Thomas has received benefits, many of them previously unreported, from a broader cohort of wealthy and powerful friends. The Times notes he has granted the association unusual access to the Supreme Court, where every year he presides over the group's signature event, a ceremony in the courtroom at which he places Horatio Alger medals around the necks of lifetime members. One entrepreneur called it the closest thing to being knighted in the United States. Among the rich and powerful he's hobnobbed with through his membership, business executive David Sokol, who was among the funders of that pro-Thomas documentary, along with billionaire Harland Crow, who ProPublica revealed as the benefactor behind luxury trips and real estate deals, including the purchase of Thomas's mother's home and school tuition payments for his nephew that Justice Thomas accepted but failed to disclose. Thomas's relationship with the Horatio Alger Society has gotten him invitations to luxury vacation retreats and VIP access to sporting events, while the group has used its access through Thomas to raise money for scholarships. Two of those scholarships, named after Thomas's son, were awarded at Virginia prep schools. One overlapped with the attendance of a young man whom Justice Thomas mentored. The other was awarded while Justice Thomas's grandnephews were attending. One of them, anyway. Clarence Thomas didn't respond to questions from the Times, but the report notes his interest in living the good life was documented even before his membership in this elite club. After befriending Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones in the 1980s, the Legal Times reported he says he plans to be rich, says that means more than just a few $100,000 a year. Joining me now is Abby Van Sickle, one of the reporters on that New York Times story I just quoted, and Adam Serwer, staff writer for The Atlantic. Thank you both for being here. And Ms. Van Sickle, let's dig into this more because, you know, one of the things that I noted in your piece is just how impressed and, you know, sort of the grandeur of being in that room, how much that meant to the people who got to be there. Is it normal for members of the Supreme Court to invite people to do fundraisers and to sort of enshrine themselves, ensconce themselves in that venue for purposes that are not legal or not related to the law, I should say?
Yeah, so what we know is basically what we reported, which is that it's very unusual for groups to get access to the Supreme Court's courtroom itself. That's a hallowed space, you know, in American jurisprudence. It's where some of the biggest decisions are made, and that this group has been able for years to get access to the courtroom itself to hold this induction ceremony.
And this induction ceremony, this is where new members are brought in. Are there members that have been brought in or who've been associated with those events who've then turned around and had cases before the court?
You know, we did an examination. One of our researchers put together a list of, you know, the top people in this organization, and they have companies from healthcare companies to industries. They're, you know, very, very wealthy and connected people, many of them conservatives and Republican donors. And so, you know, that's as much as we can say really right now, is that that's a really common theme in this organization.
And I played a little clip of that documentary, a very pro-Clarence Thomas documentary that was produced. And my understanding is it was produced in response to continued reporting about his confirmation hearing, where, of course, he was credibly accused of sexual harassment. Is that accurate?
We did see that there is a section of a book that was produced along with this documentary where there's, you know, an explicit connection between the 2016 HBO movie that came out and a decision to create something in response, giving Clarence Thomas's views, giving him in his own words. And that this documentary, you know, if you watch it at the end in the credits, it lists people who are his friends from the Horatio Alger Association along with Mr. Crow.
Right, the people who pay for it. Adam, you know, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans were outraged and claimed that the Clintons were selling the Lincoln bedroom and allowing donors to come over and experience the White House, and then they turned around and donated. This seems to me to be a sale, in a sense, of the court, trading access to the court to be in that hallowed space, as Ms. Van Sickle has described it. And then those people turn around and get their way on the court, and then they take him out to fancy events. It definitely sounds like corruption to me. How do you read it?
Well, Thomas was already very conservative when he was appointed to the court. So I think, you know, it's hard to say where his ideology begins and, you know, whatever outside influence might begin. But it's also the case that you're not supposed to be able to, you know, profit off of your elevated position. So even if, you know, there's no evidence or there's no, you know, we never find out anything that indicates, you know, sort of an explicit, I'm going to do this and you're going to rule for me on this issue. What you have is the longstanding financial and social relationship that puts pressure on a person in a position of incredible power, you know, to rule in a way that does not make his friends upset. And especially when those people are contributing to the lifestyle that you cannot afford on your own. It's just an unusual relationship. I think it is not, you know, necessarily corruption in a legal sense, but it is the kind of relationship that is corrupting in the sense that, you know, you have a very tight social and financial ties, you know, to people who have business before the court.
Well, and I think that's fair, and that is a very fair way to look at it. I mean, but this association, Adam, has given Clarence Thomas access to people who, let's just be honest, would probably not be publicly really associated with him in real life. You know, people like Buzz Aldrin, you know, Oprah Winfrey, who I don't know that was much of a booster. I mean, Maya Angelou did support him getting on the court, but Fred Trump is a member. Justice Thurgood Marshall was a member. Mike Bloomberg, Elizabeth Holmes, actors, Roger Ailes. I mean, he's getting these associations, and he is somebody who his biographers all kind of agree has this kind of anger that he wasn't able to become a rich lawyer. He's now essentially traded this hallowed position, one of 9 members of the Supreme Court, for access to wealth, access to privilege, access to money. And it doesn't surprise me that he wants to make those people happy and that his rulings do make them happy.
Well, you know, as the saying goes, it's a small club and you ain't in it. But you know, I don't think we know for sure what the nature, you know what I'm saying, to what extent, you know, this has affected, you know, any decisions he's actually made before the court. But it's certainly the case that he has been given access to a certain kind of lifestyle from people that he would not be able to afford on his own. And, you know, that is a questionable thing to do, even if no one has ever, you know, slipped you an envelope full of money or anything that explicit.
There also, Adam, is now a really big push that Congress has to stop this, have put an end to at least the perception that the court is thoroughly corrupt. Congress has been called to investigate. You've got a group of 90 progressive organizations that have now joined together called United for Democracy, calling for an investigation. But the reaction of people like Harlan Crow and even Chief Justice Roberts, this sort of contempt they've had for the suggestion that they ought to be investigated, their refusal to testify, to me, that is also damning. You know, Harlan Crow claims they have not identified a valid legislative purpose for an investigation. Justice Thomas had said, you can't investigate us. If they're not corrupt, their behavior certainly suggests that they may be corrupt-ish because they don't seem to be interested. You know, if they're doing nothing wrong, I can't understand why they wouldn't be open to a full look.
Well, I think quite apart from the question of corruption, you know, Congress is one of the 3 branches of government. It is allowed to look at the Supreme Court and say, hey, we want to make sure that you are doing your job properly. And Harlan Crow is not a branch of the Supreme Court. So I think it's actually very strange for someone to say, to thumb his nose at Congress in that way. John Roberts, you know, his argument is that it is precisely the separation of powers that prevents him from coming to Congress and answering questions in this way. I think that's questionable, but at least there's a sort of logic behind it. Harlan Crow saying, I'm going to spend all this money in advance of my political interests, and then I'm going to ignore Congress when they invite me to testify. I think that's actually much stranger.
Yeah, and I think the American people don't want to feel as if we live in a pure oligarchy where the elite sort of, pay to play and hang out and they get their way on the court like almost all the time. It definitely doesn't look or smell right. Abby Van Sickle, Adam Serwer, thank you both very much.